So I'm sure most of you have played a video game in your life. It can be from a console, such as a PlayStation or an Xbox, or it can be from an arcade where you have to insert a quarter every time you want to play, or it can be a game that you can play on your phone. My name is Ram, and I'm going to be talking about my cultural artifact, the PlayStation 4 controller. In the article History of the Game Controller by David Cornish, he briefly talks about each and every controller from 40 to 50 years ago to now, and talks about what each and every controller does. For example, there was a controller where it only has two dials for the game Pong, where only those two dials would only move the two blocks so that you can hit the ball back and forth. I will be talking about the history of what this is used for, how I personally identify with it, and how this is used in a video game culture. So the history of the PlayStation controller, there was the PlayStation 1, where back then it had a long wire to attach to the console. It also had the X, circle, square, and triangle button, and the diagonal buttons, and the two bumper buttons on each side. On the PlayStation 2, they finally added the analog sticks, and it was still wired, sadly. On the PlayStation 3, they finally removed the wire, only for the wire just to charge the controller, and it finally had motion control. On the PlayStation 4, which is this one, they added the touchpad, which adds more gameplay. And from what I hear about the PlayStation 5, now they built a microphone inside the controller so that you don't have to attach a microphone to the controller just so you can talk to your friends. How I became a part of it is that I've throughout my lifetime, I've seen controllers improve throughout my life. My first controller would have to be the PlayStation 2 controller, just because I would always play with my cousins and my friends with it. My little cousins would at least jump up and down with the controller because they want something, but because they're jumping up and down with the controller, the wire would always become tangled, and it was always a hassle just to try and fix the wire. When the PlayStation 3 controllers came out and they announced that it was finally wireless, now my cousins can jump up and down without having to worry about the controller wire breaking or ripping out off of the console. And they also added motion control, which also has which adds more gameplay. On the PlayStation 4, when they announced the touchpad, it felt it looked weird at first just because it's a giant square in the middle of the controller. But over time, it made sense to add the touchpad because it adds even more gameplay. And they also added a record feature where you can record your gameplay without having any special equipment. And it also makes me curious about what they're gonna make next. So what is this controller used for? It's used for most games. Probably, I would say 90% of the games, such as Call of Duty or Battlefield, where you can play the game with just using this. But there are games out there where it requires a special controller, such as games like Rock Band or Guitar Hero, where playing a rhythm game with this feels awkward. So they would have to make a fake guitar and drum set just so that it feels immersive to the player. And of course, some people add attachments to the controller, such as a keyboard, so that they can type faster than just try and reach to one letter to another with just the controller. And some people customize their controller where they add attachments just so that the feel of the controller feels comfortable to them. Today, I talked about the history of what this controller is used for, how I personally identify with it, and how this is used in the video game culture. I leave you with a final note that technology is always improving every day, and it's always fun to be curious about what they're gonna make next. Thank you.